Welcome to the Fantastic Story Society, a place for the most unusual stories and storytellers, including your masters of ceremony, Max, Tim, and Scott Markus.
All right. Yep. Well, we've got a whole new year, 2022. It doesn't even sound normal. Like, that doesn't sound real.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, of
yes,
course.
The triple deuce with a zero thrown in there, too.
Triple deuce. Where are the flying cars and flux capacitors? Like, this doesn't seem like a 2022.
Well, it's only January. Let's give it till February.
Yeah, you never know what might come along, especially if we look back at 2021, thinking how much of everything that happened in that particular year.
Listen, William Shatner actually went to space in 2021, so yeah, good stuff is happening.
This is weird. You know, there are things that we can talk about, and that's a little bit of what we're going to do in this episode, is just kind of a recap, if you will, not entirely, of what Scott and I went through and experienced in 2021, what we're hoping to do in 2022. It's just going to be the two of us. We don't have a guest. It's just going to be a fun chat, getting everybody invited to the Fantastic Story Society for 2022.
Yeah, and as we're gearing up for this upcoming year, we certainly would always want to hear from you. So feel free to drop us a line. Facebook or Twitter is probably the best places for us. But yeah, we want to create the show that you want to hear. So if you guys have any ideas or dream guests that you would like to hear from, definitely let us know, and we'll do our best to make it happen.
Yeah, give us a topic that you want covered, and we'll find somebody who's a expert or not, and we'll talk about it. But we're going to be doing a lot more episodes in 2022. And just to look back at 2021, some of our past episodes, we had a pretty solid lineup, just to toot our own horn a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want this to be too self-serving, but honestly, what I want to do is I want to celebrate our awesome guests a little bit more. And if you missed any episode from the past year, or I guess any episode at all, what we're doing is not timely. So you can definitely go back and listen and hopefully be as entertained as ever. I wanted to do this because I couldn't believe the number of times Max and I finished an interview with a guest. The interviewee left, and then Max and I were left behind to say, was that our best show? That was great. That was amazing.
Yeah,
we did that so often this year that I really do want to continue celebrating some of these great guests that we had. And our season kicked off last year in January with our first ever comedy night. And I think that should be a theme. Maybe we have one comedy episode per season or something like that. And last year it was Jonathan Katz, best known as Dr. Katz, professional therapist.
He was so great. He was just immediately funny. I told him that I was in Wisconsin, and he said, "Did you lose a bet?"
Yeah, that's how the show started.
That's how it started. It was literally one of the first things he said.
Very engaging and funny, and told some tremendous stories. Like, I had no idea he was such a good friend with David Mamet, the phenomenal playwright. And I feel like anytime you kind of can allow yourself to maybe be a little less professional and just start talking about something that that excites you, that's when the conversation starts. And I'm a huge Gary Shandling fan and Larry Sanders Show. And so being able to talk to him about his appearance on there opened up so many more behind the scenes stories. And that, I don't know, I just love that kind of stuff.
He was great. And I mean, I'm trying to look back at all of the episodes that we did. I don't think I have a favorite one.
Yeah,
that's
tough. I would have guessed you would have said the game night.
I guess so, because
Daviau.
of the topic, but it's so tough. Like, Jonathan Katz was so great. And then the David Farrier interview is just, they're so different compared to the board game one. It would probably be my favorite because I had the most fun in it. I don't know if it's fair to say it's my outright favorite one.
No, I hear you. So next we had Lopaka Kapanui, who we have to have on again, because this guy, he was the consultant on Finding Ohana, that Netflix movie that came out early last year. That, it's kind of like the Hawaiian Goonies. Everybody refers to it as, so I'll use that shorthand too. He is a guy that is just such a wealth of knowledge, and to hear some traditional Hawaiian stories from somebody who was brought up as a storyteller in a storytelling family was so wonderful. And we barely scratched the surface with him and what he could talk about. And I always love hearing about ghost stories from other cultures, because you would think a ghost story is going to be the same from one place to the next. How many different phenomena are there? Well, when you go to Hawaii, you find out that there's a whole lot more than we never would have considered here on the mainland.
Hawaii has so many cool stories, man. I don't know. He was such a nice person and really caring and easy to talk to. And I think that's another thing that we've got. I don't know if it's luck necessarily. I think everybody who has found a bit of success or just really loves what they do are just naturally good people. And so they're easy to talk to.
That's true. I mean, we're all bonding over the idea of story, something that we're all passionate about. And so we can kind of speak a different language, or at least understand on a nonverbal level where we're coming from, because this is something that we're all passionate about.
Yeah. And the next one that we had was baseball's ghost stories.
Yeah. And so this one, to me, again, I don't think I can say a favorite episode either. However, this is the one that was a little bit of a mind-blowing episode to me, in that something was said during this episode that I feel like has made the world made sense to me a little bit better. Is that profound enough?
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm thinking we're going to talk some just fun ghost stories involving baseball players and stadiums, and not really get into that next level at all. We asked why there is so much superstition in baseball, and they said, in a world where your best players are failing 70% of the time, right, success is never guaranteed. And just as easily, you could have a guy come up and hit a ball, comes 110 miles an hour off the bat directly into a fielder's mitt, whereas the next player could squib one off the end of the bat and it just kind of rolls between the fielders. The first guy with the line drive is out, but this other guy who got a really poor contact hit is on safely. So there's no rhyme or reason. And so the idea, why is there superstition? Why is there folklore? Why are these legends? It's because in this world of chaos, we're trying to find reason to understand life. And it kind of makes me understand why QAnon exists, why all of these other legends exist too, that people are trying to find reason in chaos. And when there isn't any, we have to invent it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such an interesting topic that we don't need, we don't want to have too much time to go into, but comparing baseball to other sports like football or basketball or hockey, especially football is a good example. You can force your way through strength and power to be better. You can make a play just by being stronger than other people. And baseball, you can sometimes rely on that, but not really. There's such a precision to everything. You have to throw the ball in the right place. You have to make sure that you see the ball. You're thinking so much more in terms of what kind of pitches coming your way, what's the count, how many people are on base, how many pitches has the pitcher thrown. There are so many things to think about. And then when the pitch is thrown, you're just kind of swinging. Well, I'm just going to try to hit the thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's totally understandable why people, and I played baseball for a long time, and there was kind of this, I had, a home run last game and I ate spaghetti before the game, so I'm going to do that again. Like, what? That's not going to have come into play. But you try to control it. And that's kind of what I mean in terms of the comparison between baseball and football. You can control a football game by just being more powerful than somebody else and forcing your way through. It doesn't always work, but at least you have the ability to do that. In baseball, you don't really.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then you see Ichiro Suzuki, one of the best hitters in the history of the game, and he is a rail thin twig, just knows how to put the ball in play the right way. But if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So it's not just like, he mastered a skill. There is no mastering certain skills. Some people have it in some intangible way.
Right. Yeah. Jose Altuve is another example that I don't know how this guy even hits the ball out of the infield.
No, it's I love his story. Yeah. 5'6", shortest guy in the majors, a guy that was told and just turned away from tryouts over and over again, saying you're too small. And he would keep going back, and here he is. He won an MVP, something like that.
It's a wild sport.
Yeah.
Moving on though. So in May we had Jessica Watson, stand-up comic. She was awesome to talk to.
Yeah. She had that documentary where she walked across America. And so that's really why she was brought on, because we were talking about fantastic stories. And if you are I don't want to call her a starting out comic, but she certainly isn't an established comic like a Jim Gaffigan or anything like that. So in addition to trying to get her comedy career off the ground, she decides to walk across America, coast to coast, doing stand-up shows at little bars or wherever they could have a mic plugged in. I would like to make sure that we do more of that in the future as well. It doesn't have to be paranormal. It doesn't have to be macabre. But if somebody has a tremendous experience like this, that's a fantastic story. they could come into our society.
Yeah, there are only so many people who have walked across the entire country.
Right.
And it's I would never have even thought about it, but there's like a group of people that have done this, and more people will do it next year. But it's amazing, and it really is a fantastic story. And she was a lot of fun. All the insights that she learned about who she is, like she recorded it all. It's in this documentary that she did and released. Really worth watching. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think even more amazing than walking across America is she did it while filming, while alone. It's not like she had a camera crew with her. So she had to like set up the camera, get a shot of her walking down the street, and then turn around and go back to pick up the camera. And so she's walking more than like 1.5 times across the country.
Yeah, right. I didn't even think about that. Oh my God. But
and then we got to talk with we had a lot of funny people on this season. Carlos Alazraqui, from Reno 911 and all sorts of voice work for cartoons, but he wrote a zombie movie. So that allowed Max and I to talk about zombies, which we are kind of nerdy about too, which is always a good time.
Yeah, zombies have always fascinated me. They still do. I need to catch up on The Walking Dead. It just got a little too repetitive. Like they're still walking and they're still dead.
Yeah, I'm a few seasons behind at this point too, but it is one that I find times to binge and catch up. It is interesting to see how they keep it fresh, what kind of new characters or what kind of new fresh hell they could throw at these beloved characters. They do a good job, and I do want to see over time how things change. Are these zombies going to become more decomposed and therefore less of a threat? You think it should happen, but
totally. We'll see. I mean, how many years are we going now? We're going on almost 10 years. I mean, these things, there's no way there can't be that many around.
These things can vote by now,
Right. Yeah. But after Carlos, we had some fun and had a live, pseudo live.
But in person and in the field.
Yeah. In October, that was our Halloween episode. We had a few that we kind of chatted about Halloween just because it's our favorite holiday. But Lisa, and we went to Madison's Haunted Oyster Bar. But you found this. I had never even heard of it.
First off, Van Buskirk is her
my bad.
name. The Tempest Oyster Bar in Madison. And really, I mean, Lisa is the Madison local tour guide. And so she's got a number of different tours throughout the Madison area. I've been to the Tempest before, but I don't think I think I knew it was haunted, but I didn't really know anything about it. So we were both pretty much learning on the spot on this one. And the fact that the location has a connection to the Heaven's Gate cult out of San Diego that did that famous mass suicide in the 90s, that was mind-blowing to me.
That's right. The guy lived in the basement or something and ended up committing suicide there.
Yeah. And so it was wild. When editing this video, I did some more research and I was able to find that the Heaven's Gate cult was in Madison about 3 weeks before the mass suicide. There were notices in the paper for, like what to do around town. And hey, there are people giving a lecture that was targeted towards university students about UFOs and the afterlife. And I thought, wow, like if I was in college, not even in college, if I had heard that was something to do this weekend, I'd be like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd go to that. Like little do you know who it is coming out and giving certain messages. And they were trying to recruit college students, these sick bastards.
God, Lord.
So, we always know that so many people committed suicide there in the compound. Very famously was John Applewhite. Everybody's wearing the same clothes. A number of guys had castrated themselves because they were trying to catch a flight on the UFO that was hiding behind the Hale-Bopp comet. You never hear that people across the country, and I don't know how many because it's not really reported. The suicides usually don't make the newspaper unless it's a massive story like this was. So individuals who may have also committed suicide as part of that cult really haven't been reported on, but there's apparently one in Madison.
Wild. It really is. I think to me, it's wild that people would be convinced of that. It's hard for me to think how I would be convinced of something that outlandish to actually physically harm yourself based on the belief someone else convinced you of. Like it's hard for me to fathom.
Well, maybe I think we even said this in the episode, but we should probably do a cult oriented episode with some sort of an expert on how those operate.
Yeah. That's a really good idea.
It's fascinating. I have a friend who was invited to come to a lecture, not at all associated with this, but they were kind of like a self improvement, get your life together kind of a seminar, which sounds healthy, which sounds like a positive thing. But it ended up being like 20 hours long, and the sales pitch would come in and then keep coming in and keep coming in about like signing up for this class to, take the next step on this journey. And so sleep deprivation was part of it. And so then when they were released that night, because it was supposed to be like a weekend long seminar, when they were released, they would have to call, or they would get called by some contact within the company every 2 hours. So they still, even when they went home, they couldn't really get a good night's sleep. And it was just about wearing these people down, the like war of attrition. It's torture. So by the end of it, you're not thinking right. And so I got to imagine that they use some of these same tactics.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the funny thing is, there's nothing cult-like about DJ MacHale, the next guest. However, he's got a little bit of a pop culture icon to his name, if you will, because of what he created, the show that he created.
Yes. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Definitely a seminal piece of pop culture for me. I definitely watched that a lot, even though I think I was a little bit older than the target demographic. But hey, I love a good story and a good creepy story. And that was on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it was a really fun show. It's just fun, man. And it's right up our alley. Sit around campfires telling ghost stories. Scott and I could do that every night. We would.
Oh, yeah. And, it's always an honor for me to be able to talk with DJ. He not only was an important voice in my growing up, a voice that I never heard him speak directly, but just from watching his shows. But then I ended up working some of my first jobs in the film industry. I worked for 3 seasons on a TV show that he created, and he wrote every episode and directed about half the episodes. But he was always around on set, and getting to see how he directs, how he works with cast really influenced how I do it. So he's an important person in my life. Very happy to talk to him anytime I can. And very excited that I know this in the episode, it maybe sounded fly by night a little bit, but the idea of inducting a Hall of Famer is something that I'd been thinking about for a while. And so it only made sense that DJ was our first returning guest. He should be our first inductee to the Fantastic Story Society Hall of Fame. And that's something that I think would be fun to continue into the new year, having maybe 1 episode per year, maybe 2, where if it's a returning guest or not, but somebody that is extra elevated that we would call a Hall of Famer storyteller.
Definitely. I think we definitely have to do that with Jeff Bellinger. He was our pilot episode guest, and he would be great to bring back on. He could probably just be a regular guest because he's so good.
Sure. Yeah.
The amount of stories that he has, especially because of his New England Ghost Stories podcast that he has. Great guy. But yeah, DJ was our first inductee into the FSS Hall of Fame.
Yes. But the first inductee onto our individual Rec Room game shelves, Rob Daviau. What a fun one on so many fronts. I know this is just a pretty recent episode, so we won't dwell on it too much, but Rob Daviau was an amazing guest. And I think he didn't know quite exactly what he was getting into with coming on our show at first, because I don't think I would imagine that he's been interviewed by all sorts of game and geek oriented podcasts, but this is a storytelling one. But almost immediately I realized that this is the right person for this show, a guy who designs games and designs how to tell a story basically through a game, coming on to talk with us. It was such a fun episode.
It was so great because Scott surprised me with not only him as a guest, but a guest. Like we were just going to record a podcast between the two of us. And then about 2 minutes before we actually started, he was like, yeah, we've got a guest. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. I haven't prepared anything. Who's the guest? And suddenly it turns out to be this person who created some of our favorite board games that we've played hundreds of times. And like we were saying earlier, it is probably my favorite episode of the year, just because of that fun surprise element and finding out that he created Risk Legacy, which if anybody out there plays board games, enough, you've at least heard of Risk Legacy. It's an elevated version of Risk. But he also created and came up with the idea of legacy board gaming, which is just mind blowing to me.
Yeah,
so yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know that was true when I interviewed him. That was something I learned on the spot, that he created the concept of legacy games.
Yeah.
And, I just had this brainstorm. I love finding our guests. And I thought, well, whoever's behind Betrayal at the House on the Hill, we got to get him because we love that game so much. And it really is a game about storytelling that harkens back to so many like 1950s horror movies. Who created that? And I clicked on his name and saw his resume. I thought, oh my God, how is this even possible that one guy created so many games that we love that are so diverse, both in mechanics and in genre, theme, and all that? What a treat that it was to invite him to this Story Society.
Yeah. And in terms of what we're going to be doing a lot more of in 2022, just plainly speaking, board games.
I know each of us have bought a lot more games since that episode.
Seriously, it was because of that episode I went out and bought like 10 board games, and we've played a bunch of them. One of them is this massive, ridiculously epic game called Gloomhaven that it took Scott and I just an hour just to pop out all the pieces. We didn't even look into how to play it. So that one's going to be something that we'll have to trudge through and eventually find our momentum. But I mean, what are the plans for the coming year for you?
Well, so here's one thing. I would like to get you to your first paranormal conference. That's something that has to happen.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And now, hopefully, I mean, chances are that could be the Galena Ghost Conference. It was a few years ago. We had Ted and Robin on to promote that they were going to do their first ever Ghost Conference in this amazing town of Galena, Illinois. Which, if you're at all in the Midwest, definitely look into this. I think tickets are still available. But yeah, so we announced this episode, or we announced this plan, and then almost immediately COVID hits. And everything's basically locked down or not safe to do. So it still hasn't happened. That episode that we put out, I think 2 years ago, but it is still going to happen. And yeah, if we go to Haunted Galena Tour Company, you'd find the information on it. I think you'd have so much fun at a ghost conference, whether it's there and or at the Michigan Paracon, which is the big one up in Sault Ste. Marie. I think you would geek out at them and at these events.
Yeah, and that's coming up soon, isn't it?
That's usually in the middle of the summer, like August.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, I think it would be great to have Tim and Lindsay Ellis, two of the many people that put on that event, have them on the show, just to talk about what it's like to put on the country's biggest ghost conference. There's got to be some stories behind that.
I know they get huge guests like Josh Gates and Amy Bruni and Adam Berry. And actually, speaking of, I just watched a great episode of Kindred Spirits last night. That's Amy Bruni and Adam Berry's show on Discovery. Really good episode. Like, what I like about them is if you are into ghost investigation shows, you should look up Kindred Spirits on Discovery Plus. But it's the best $8 a month I spend. But they don't go in just to try to find the crazy haunting experience like Ghost Adventures or Destination Fear. I do like Destination Fear. It's fun. But they actually go and try to figure out what's going on. Like, why is something being haunted or something is in house or location? And then what is it that's haunting it and why? And then they try to actually fix the problem. And most ghost investigation shows don't do that. They end up leaving like, oh, good luck with your haunted house. We just made it worse, but Amy and Adam actually go in and they care about their guests and subjects, I should say. And it's just a really engaging and rewarding show. So I'll probably be watching a lot more ghost shows this year, which might be kind of difficult because I think I watch them all anyway.
You got to start making them then. And I would love to have Amy on our show as well, because in addition to being a host of Kindred Spirits, she puts on all sorts of live events across the country where people can spend the weekend visiting a haunted site with her. I'd love to check in on these, I think haunted destinations, something along those lines is what she calls it. Yeah. All sorts of different ways you can tell a ghost story, including a fully immersive experience.
Right. That kind of is a nice little segue in terms of what I'm trying to do with my Story Farm consulting company. Is that I already have plans to do at least 2 more weekend retreats near the end of the summer, beginning of fall. But I want to do a lot more. I'm going to be trying to purchase a property. Hopefully, it isn't a continual process of just trying, and I actually do purchase one, but actually purchase a retreat property and host multiple types of retreats, not just writing retreats. And it would be kind of fun to get some form of a ghost oriented paranormal type of retreat, because you're out in the middle of nowhere. You're pretty close to Lake Geneva, a little bit of a drive to Galena, but that's a lot in terms of my business. That's what I'm going to be focusing a lot more retreats, getting people together, because we've gone through 2 years of not really being able to hang out and see people. And so if you get a small group of people together in one location, you can get a lot done and still have that kind of social experience.
Yeah, that's cool. And it was so fun, the event that you had this past year. And yeah, I know that's just the kickoff of what's going to come next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll see what's going to happen.
You know, on this note, as we're kind of talking about hopes and expectations for the new year, do you have any, even just dreaming as big as possible, dream guests that you would love to have on in the new year?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of dream guests, gosh, I mean, you'd go as big as you want. Stephen King would be the greatest guest ever. He would be it. Like, I think we would just probably end the entire show if we had Stephen. He would be amazing. I think some of the creators for our favorite kind of, spooky, cool shows, like the creators of Stranger Things, would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And Mike Flanagan, who created The Haunting of Hill House, or is it the Hill? Yeah, Hill House. Plus a few other shows. I mean, the Bly Manor was amazing. The most recent one he did was Midnight Mass. Midnight Mass was incredible. And if you haven't seen Midnight Mass, really, I can understand why some people would be like, wait a minute, this was not what I expected, which is of course fun, but the simplicity of the story matched with the complexity of how he told it, and how everybody who was involved in creating it told it. Really excellent. So Mike Flanagan would be awesome. Yeah. There are so many other people that would be great to have on.
I mean, we've always been talking about Josh Gates, so naturally he's still on our list.
Totally, Josh. Yeah.
For me, I think it's been so fortunate. I've been able to check off so many of my dream guests already, even though the show is only 20 some episodes old. John Ronson, of course, was a huge get for me, and David Farrier matches in the same style. The next to meet for me, and I don't know if he's even up to anything lately, Morgan Spurlock. I love anything he puts out. He most famously is known as the guy behind Super Size Me.
Yes, Morgan Spurlock, right?
Yeah, but he did some great shows, kind of day in the life, almost kind of like a Dirty Work style show, but just really diving into a political issue, showing all sides of it, and kind of like getting completely immersed in it. And oh gosh, I should look up the name of that episode of that show, but it was so great. I'm really a huge fan of anything he does. So Morgan Spurlock would be, I think, my next investigative journalist if I could get him.
He would be great. Trevor Noah would be amazing.
Yeah.
He would be probably as big as, well, no, not as big as Stephen King. We don't need big celebrities on.
No, it's not about that.
Yeah. It's more so people who have just been immersed in really incredible stories and then be able to talk about the psychology behind them. That is ultimately our show. Yeah.
And, if we do, and we will do another comedy night. And of course, the top of our list would be if we could get Brian Regan. That would be amazing.
Brian would be so great. Jim Gaffigan. I mean, that list is massive.
When we talk about it, I think especially with Brian, he's such a great storyteller. He's not doing just the, set up punchline. He's taking you on a journey, whether it's having the cable turned on at his house. He can make that funny for 15 minutes somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what the year brings, man. It's the past 2 years have just kind of changed everything. I mean, I did not expect to be living full time in Wisconsin, and I'm still here. I've been thinking about possibly going back to Los Angeles, even just for a short term, maybe not permanently. Trying to figure that out, mainly during January and February, and possibly March, because it's awful and cold in Wisconsin in the winter. Trying to see what happens there. I don't know. I'm at this point dreaming of May 1st.
Yeah. Well, actually, on that note, I should mention that the LA Hauntings tour that I started is up and running again.
Totally.
Talk about that for a great moment from 2021 that is only going to grow in 2022. I started this tour as a bus tour, but we've relaunched it as a walking tour on Hollywood Boulevard. But we will be getting the bus tour portion up and going again, which will take people through downtown LA and some other parts of Los Angeles. I mean, just as a creator and as a storyteller, it was such a blast to put that together back in the past. And it's really fun to get some, I think I'm a decent storyteller and host, but we were able to hire some amazing tour guides. So I'm really excited to see what they will bring to it, how they will kind of make it their own as they kind of build on the tour I created. It's an exciting time.
Yeah. For people who are in Los Angeles, tell them how to reserve tickets.
Yeah. If you just go to AmericanGhostWalks.com, you will see all the tours that Mike Huberty has to offer, which, of course, Mike was our second guest ever way back in the day, because he runs ghost tours in a whole bunch of different states, including Los Angeles, California right now.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. So that's exciting. And I really want to do a whole bunch of other tours in the LA area. I want to keep building on the existing tour. So I think I will have some trips out to LA to do interviews and do some investigations of sorts myself this coming year, which is very exciting to me.
Let's plan for January, February, and March.
All right. No complaints here. Not going to fight that one.
Wendy can bring her whole band. She doesn't need to only perform in Wisconsin.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think she's okay with that too.
Yeah.
And Mike, I was going to mention there's some corrections already. Amy Bruni's live events are called Strange Escapes.
Yes.
And the Morgan Spurlock TV series I was referencing was called Inside Man.
Right. Ooh, I've heard really good things about that. I have not seen it.
Yeah, it only ran from 2014 through 16, but every episode is like it should win a Peabody. Each individual episode should.
Yeah.
Very good stuff.
Yeah. Shout out to Amy Bruni. And she did like a tweet that I tweeted last night. So maybe she'll end up coming on as a guest.
We're in.
Yeah. This was a fun little recap episode. It's nice to look back at the previous year. What have we learned? And how do we build on that? I think everybody listening can be able to do that in some way or fashion in your own life. Be, happy with what you experienced, good or bad, in 2021. Learn from that experience and make the most of this coming year. That's the nice thing about January, even though it's cold in most of the country. We're able to sit back and just kind of review and go, all right, what can I change about myself to improve even just a little bit, little by little every day. That's what I tell my writers all the time. You just be a little bit better than you were yesterday, and you're moving forward. That's great. That's what we should be doing, whether it's our writing, whether it's any element of our lives. Make today better than yesterday. That's awesome. Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year to you, Scott. Happy New Year. A lot more of you coming up in this year too. Yeah, absolutely. Even though as we're recording this, the Omicron variant is sweeping the nation, unfortunately, I still am very optimistic overall that the world overall is going to open up more and more and make travel easier and easier. Just everybody stay safe out there, do what you can to protect yourself and those around you, whatever that means to you, but be an active participant in making the world a better place. And I really hope to get out there and do a lot more exploring and investigating places than I've been able to do the last couple of years. My ghost hunting gear is getting dusty. I don't like that. Yeah, let's do that for sure. Nice. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. As always, if you hear of or experience a fantastic story, let us know. You might be the next guest and inductee into the Fantastic Story Society. Happy New Year, everybody.